All right, we can go ahead.
Are you ready?
If that's okay.
Yeah.
If that's, yeah, just to go ahead. We can't find it.
We do have a forum, so we are good.
All right, cool. Want to call to order, the December 2023 Victorian Village hearing. Our next, business meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, December 27th, 2023, at 12 noon, and that will be held hopefully at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 205. So
It should be,
that's going to be in this room next door.
yes.
Okay, so that's perfect. Okay. And then our next hearing date will be Wednesday, January 10th, 2024, at 4 p.m. And that's going to be 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, room that we're in now. I want to swear in staff.
Yes, of course.
Will you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Morgan Graham, Assistant Historical Preservation Officer.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right, commissioners present, Jeff,
Commissioner Hissel,
Reed Sprite, Tim Skinner.
Sean Conyers. Any hearing format or public forum?
No, public forum has been canceled for this evening, and we moved to the January agenda for the City Attorney's Office Board Commission, oath of office and pledge of ethical conduct. That'll be moved to
okay.
Thank you. And then would you, just kind of thinking about that, I know that it might have got lost in some of the emails. Would you be able to, when you issue that for the business meeting, be able just to issue that oath again to all the team members for review?
Yeah, we can resend that email.
I think that'd be helpful. Okay. Thank you. All right, so approval of the staff approvals.
Motion to approve staff approvals.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so you want to read any addresses or any abstentions?
Of course. Thank you. Let me just get to the page real quick, commissioners. All right, so staff approved applications would be 992 Harrison Avenue, 755 Dennison Avenue, and 217 Buttles Avenue, 357 West First Avenue, 765 North High Street, 50 West Third Avenue, 231 West Hubbard Avenue, 231 West Hubbard Avenue again, and 647 North High Street, and 30 Price Avenue.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, so approvals of the minutes from November 8th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve November minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion at all on those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. So Morgan, I'll kick it over to you for any other staff reports and such.
Of course.
Thank you.
I will note the two staff recommended applications, 647 North High Street and 30 Price Avenue, which is 2312008, and BV 2312009 for the VECTA staff. So we'll move on to the continued applications.
Thank you.
Great. First continued application is VV 2210016B, 5355 West Star Avenue.
Good afternoon.
Kevin,
I'm attorney Suzanne Kelly. I represent Mr. Dooley, who owns the property through his corporation. He is on vacation, and so I'm here representing.
perfect. And since you stated your name, can I get you sworn in though?
Yes,
Yeah, do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
yes, sir.
Thank you. Ed Morgan.
Thank you. So for proposed work description, this is to retain the painting of previously unpainted masonry, paint house with mineral paint for submitted options. Staff analysis, I'm going to read through the last commission meeting minutes, if that works for the commissioners.
Sure.
Okay. Following is taken from the unapproved November 8th, 2023 Victorian Village Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners asked the applicant whether they had any other options, as the commission is steadfast on this matter. Commission did not feel that another color would be appropriate here either. Ultimately, the brick should be brick and it should not be painted. One commissioner pointed out that it is 1970s brick, not 1870s, so it is a very hard brick. Brick from the 1970s is not any different from the brick that is being made today. With 1870s brick, you do need to be very careful as it is very porous, but paint is still able to be removed from the surface. The commission stated that they need to be very careful about setting precedent and need to adhere to Victorian Village guidelines. The applicant was encouraged to reach out to other experts for further advice about removing the paint. The commission noted that they still need more information about the product used and how it was used, for example, the dwell time and temperature applied, and any other information that affects the performance of the product, and asked the applicant to provide information about additional products that may be available. The commission noted that different removal products work differently and that some may be more effective than others. The applicant was encouraged to reach out to the paint manufacturer to get their opinion on whether the paint can be removed and what to use to remove it, or provide a letter from the paint company stating that the paint is not able to be removed. The commission doesn't have enough evidence at this time to conclude the paint can be removed, so the additional information requested would help with this decision. One commissioner suggested that a distressed painted whitewash brick with a 1970s mansard roof might be preferable to the fully painted brick. Another commissioner asked whether the commission would rather see an attempt like the distressed brick, or if they want to see the brick fully restored. The commission agreed that they currently don't have enough information to make the decision at the time. Encouraged the applicant to look at other similar properties on their neighborhood for an idea of what could be accepted. Recommended that the applicant reach out to Columbus Landmarks for contractor recommendations. They may request that staff do a site visit in the future to see how the brick has reacted to the paint removal chemicals. Included with that is the November 9th, 2022 minutes and the October 12th, 2022 minutes. As stated in the letter provided by the applicant and the materials, they have applied 3 different paint removers, which included Strip-Ease, Jasco, and Smart Strip. The paint remover products were then removed with a 4,500 PSI pressure washer after being applied for a 3-hour period with 60+ degree temperatures, and link to videos are included as well in the materials. At the time of the December business meeting, the commissioners present did not require additional information and would discuss the materials further at the hearing. Staff note, from what it appears, the products have been used outside of their manufacturer parameters and specification. Staff recommends continuation of application, BV 2310-016B, 5355 West Star Avenue, to allow the applicant time to perform further test patches on the brick with other recommended products and recommended manufacturer specifications. Basis of staff rec is City Code 311611, standards for alteration, 1 through 12.
Thank you so much, Morgan. All right, so I'll go ahead and transition over to you for any additional information.
We submitted to the commission videos of the additional testing that we did on the building after we attended the last business meeting. And we used the product that the paint manufacturer, which we included a letter, recommended for removal of this very specific product that we used on the building. That's one of the videos that we showed. We used varying times of leaving the materials on there, and they used the pressure washer to try and remove the paint from the building after it sat for various times. The only time the paint came off was when they used the pressure washer at too high of a volume, and that caused the brick to have damage to it. So backing off on the pressure of the brick, all of the products that we have been recommended to try have a PSI of at least 400. One is 500, one is 600. And Victorian Village regulations require no more than a 300 PSI. At that, it just seemed to shine up the paint. We had the Landmarks Commission come out and take a look at the building, and they recommended 2 products that we had not yet used. These are very, the directions on how to use these products were provided to you, and it is also requires a PSI of 400 to take it off after you apply it, and applies multiple applications and does not guarantee that the paint will be fully removed. To use that particular product from Landmarks Commission, it has to be at least 54 degrees. And since one of the requirements is that it potentially be left on for a prolonged period of time, it would have to be 54 for a prolonged period of time, which in Ohio isn't going to happen. We are doubtful, given that we've tried all of these other products, that it's going to be effective. But, and the extent of what you have to do to use this product, we have concerns about rinsing it off into the soil around the building, and as to whether that's even allowed or feasible. But there is a second product called Safe Environment, but again, it requires a higher PSI to potentially remove it from the building. And again, multiple applications. To date, the only thing that has taken it off, the paint off the bricks, is the higher PSI water, I'm sorry, can't even think of the thing. Power washer, along with the stripping product, and that resulted in the bricks having damage and not taking them back to their original appearance, but to an orange stripped down appearance. And I'm afraid that with this other more acidic product that you have to use, it will also take them down and take off whatever coating they had on them prior to us painting the brick. We're concerned that it won't have a uniform appearance under the best of conditions, and trying to do a 2-story removal of paint is not the best of conditions. We think the building at this point would look best if a paint color was accepted by the Victorian Village Commission and the project was completed. Or alternatively, because the one side of the building is not yet painted, it's like 5/8 painted. Not paint the side that isn't painted, but just finish the painting on the sides that are in a color that's acceptable to the Victorian Village Commission, and not try to remove any more of the paint and do any more damage to the underlying bricks.
Thank you, that was very helpful. So, all right, team, so, just thoughts, comments, obviously, I think the photographs, I think we have everything that we need or have been asked. I think there's still one test that's left, is the recommendation from landmarks, but I understand the concerns in terms of where we are seasonally, right now, so, but, this will offer some thoughts.
Can you kind of clarify which product has not been tested yet?
Is the product suggested by the Landmarks Commission? Hold on one second, let me find it here. It's the
Safe. There was two safe, there was Sure Clean and then Enviro Clean. Neither of
Sure
those.
Clean was the one that we thought might have an effect. The Safe Strip probably, it looked like it was of the same makeup as things we've already tried. The problem with the strip product that they recommended is basically you have to have people in hazmat suits to apply it, and it's a very, you have to watch this. It can etch the brick. It can also damage the brick. They don't give you any guarantees it's going to come off, and there can be a casting over the brick once it's done, even after you rinse it. I'm especially concerned because we cannot do the level of PSI with a power washer that they recommend. So we can't use that product as it's directed. We can do the best that we can, but
Thank you.
Makes sense.
So the reason they can't use the level of PSI, because why?
I think that's written in the BBC manual as it relates to maybe addressing cleaning brick, if I remember correctly. I think that's,
But that's for old brick, historic brick.
Yes,
So
However-
that's,
if I can clarify,
Okay.
staff and commissioners, for 300 PSI is typically recommended for stored brick. This is newer brick, so a little bit higher PSI would be fine.
Mhm.
I'm not at the 4,500 PSI, but definitely higher of like the 500 potentially, since it is a more modern brick.
Well, we already got a notification that we were not allowed to use anything over 300. When we submitted our first materials, we were warned that we were not to use anything over 300.
That is typically what we recommend. But I believe from what I've discussed with the staff who've been conducting the hearing and for this application specifically, that a little bit higher with the newer brick is fine. Yeah,
Right. But my problem is we've already been told, don't use it. We got a specific email that says, don't use it. And we're already in enough
Yeah.
trouble here as it is, and we're trying to follow all the regulations, so.
I think that's very much appreciative. And I think as, you know, this thing is starting to unfold, I think there's
But
clarification.
I
That's
also-
might have just been
But I
misunderstood.
also want to say,
Yeah,
working from a state and city, every department has their, what they say. Did you explain that it was a newer brick and it's not historic brick? Because historic brick does have a very hard outside, but then the inside is soft. Modern brick isn't like that. So, you know, I would think I would make sure they understand what type of brick we're talking about, not just brick in general, because if you just say brick in general, they're gonna say, no, do not go over this threshold.
I think that's been clarified now. And I think what I'm hearing is that the city and staff understands that this is a newer brick and their evaluation would allow for an increased PSI to assist with the paint removal. And I think that's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm hearing, but that's not what they're understanding.
No, because this notification of using the proper PSI came within the last 8 weeks when everyone was well aware of what the brick was, and therefore, you know, everybody knows that what kind of brick it is in this particular building. And it didn't seem to make any differentiation to the people notifying us that we used too high of a PSI. So they knew what kind of brick we were washing and what we were doing it for in a 1970s building. And we still got the notification that we used a PSI that was too high. So that's why we are being as cautious as possible, since everyone knows what kind of brick it is by this point. Since we've done these tests, this is our second or third round of tests on this particular paint removal options.
and if I may add, again, I have been a staff member with this application. I can verify with our office as well for that information.
I'm sorry?
Can verify that information with our office as well with the more modern brick from 1970s building with a slightly higher PSI as possible.
We wouldn't do it unless we got specific
For sure.
permission at this point.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Understand.
So she's gonna clarify.
If we'll get it in writing, we'll be happy to give it a try at this point, but regardless of the PSI issues, we still have a product that is extremely caustic, and the best they can tell us is if it comes off, we've got a high potential for casting. We also have a high potential that there may be more detriment to the brick, and that there's not going to be an even removal of the paint.
So just for clarity, so there's two recommended by landmarks, right? We're talking about the caustic one, but the EnviroClean safety peel, that was also not tested. And you
We
said
did-
the makeup was similar or something like that.
There wasn't any of the Sure Strip available to purchase to use it to test with. The other one hasn't been released yet. So at this point, we haven't put our hands on either of these products and cannot put our hands on either of these products. But once we get the product and see if it can actually be used on the brick, it was my understanding that the EnviroStrip was one similar to the Pro Strip that we have previously used twice
Okay.
and did different lengths of time on the building.
Just trying to figure out how to move it forward. So timing wise, is there any, I mean, obviously the seasonal issues in terms of being able to do these tests, is there any other, I guess, I know we don't want to push this till spring, but I'm gonna say, is there anything that would prevent us from pushing this to spring?
There is currently a citation in front of the environmental court. They gave us an initial continuance until February. If we can get an agreement from the prosecutor to continue until we think we're gonna get a few days in a row that are warm, then there wouldn't be a problem with continuing it. I mean, we're trying to show prosecutor that we are trying to comply and meet your recommendations and follow directions. But we do have that over our heads at this point in time as to trying to balance these two situations out.
For sure. With that process, is there anything that we could do from the staff's perspective or that this commission could do to try to help make sure that that extension is possible?
I imagine if the commission would provide documentation to the prosecutor on the case, that you would not object to a continuance. The other option would be to be a dismissal without prejudice and a refiling. As we continue to work on this, and then it can be refiled at any time if it's necessary. Those would be two options.
Okay. It seems like we would try to at least try to obviously continue the application. Well, I guess, no, I shouldn't say that. So in order for, it seems like there's one round of tests that could be completed. There's clarification of the enhanced PSI. I know that there are some new products that the steps of landmarks being able to introduce, which I think that's the proper steps to do. And it seems like it would be prudent to at least try that application.
I think we should continue, but the question is then who writes the letter to? This is the first time I've heard this other thing that's going on.
For sure,
So the environmental piece is coming from what angle?
Excuse me, there was, I'm not entirely certain who, it was my understanding that the Victorian Village Commission requested there be a citation made. But because we painted a building out of term without having our permission. And so that's my understanding of how it came about.
So it went into code then, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is kind of normal process for any citations, right?
I'm not sure if the full process, city code, or not city code, sorry, for code violation is submitted. I believe after a certain amount of time, it might go to environmental court. That's all I pretty much know about that process, depending on how long the code violation has been instated, I guess.
So Morgan, if we were, again, a continuing application sometimes only happens so many times and then it has to be resubmitted. I mean, to Jeff's point, like trying to figure out what that next step of what kind of formality to our, no motion to continue, what would she need to help? Well, what would you issue? Like is there something that you could issue that the applicant would be able to utilize in conversations on her end with regarding the citation?
Right. It's our official motion to
Yeah,
continue this
Is it acceptable?
until, and we say until June or whatever,
Right.
so we can have continuous warm weather. Is that enough for the environmental court to say, okay, they're working in good faith.
That's correct.
We need to back off this one and let them work in good faith.
I'm not sure about for the environmental court per se. Of course, we can make a continuation until materials have been presented to us, so that can't get done until maybe May or whenever. I mean, maybe that could be stated, so typically with the continuation, if we need certain materials and the applicant doesn't provide them with the next month or maybe 2 months, they can be added 2 months later, even though they are a continued application, if that makes sense.
Yep.
They don't immediately go on to the next month's agenda unless we have all the materials needed.
Okay,
So it could be something similar to that case or scenario.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all good.
The other thing we would request from the commission is, of course, in the best case scenario, it comes off to a point that you're satisfied with it being restored to the best that we can with a brick, and that's it. If, when we try this removal process, if it doesn't work, or if we say, yes, we're gonna go ahead with it and we try it, but the brick still isn't to your standards, I guess we're wondering what the option would be then. What do we have to, would we be allowed to paint it at that point, or would we have to come up with some other solution if it doesn't come off?
I think that's understandable. But I think that there was probably some, I'm just kind of reading the information that came out of the last month's discussion in terms of comments, and it seems like there was some ability to, once those tests are done, and if there's constraint or hardships related to that test that can't be overcome, that there were a couple of options that could be evaluated.
Right, we were hoping to receive a photograph of the whitewashed suggestion.
Okay,
That didn't get forwarded to us,
Okay.
so we don't really have we want to be on the same plane,
I understand.
on the same page with everyone. So if you have a picture of what you're talking about, we would like to see it so that we don't use our interpretation of a
Mhm.
whitewash
That makes sense.
or the other possibilities. We don't want to be creative.
I
We
understand.
want to do exactly what it is
That's
that
fair.
you want us to
We
do.
appreciate that. Understandable. So I just kind of think about that, and I'm not sure if we can probably do it now during this hearing, but being able to provide, I think that applicant wise, I think there may be a situation where they're taking some inventory of maybe some of the like properties in the area that may have some of these conditions. I'm not sure if staff would be able to try to help assist in that manner.
We can try to find examples if there are any in the neighborhood
Okay,
and just that.
okay. Maybe that's an exchange that happens in this kind of duration of time to better prepare for the outlook of that. With this motion of continuance, is April a good defining, or should we extend it to May?
I think it needs to be made because we
May,
don't have
okay.
consistent weather in
Okay,
April.
perfect. Okay,
24 hours.
okay. So
Yeah,
May.
that's,
All right.
it's a 24-hour, to try one for 24 hours.
Yeah.
If we were to try that,
Iffy.
Okay,
it would be a little iffy,
so May 2024.
but we might be able to get a little something done
Yes.
prior to that. We will certainly try to, and if we do, we'll submit prior to that.
Okay, very helpful. All right, so I think that we have everything, and Reed, do you wanna introduce yourself, just because I know you've been
Yes,
here, or you wanna
I
wait?
wasn't sure if I needed to sit out.
Okay, you
It's
just
coming late.
wanna wait.
Or-
Okay,
Probably just through this application.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll just abstain.
okay.
Yeah.
And then we can
Just one-
call into record that Commissioner Dodson.
Awesome, okay. Is there a motion of continuance with the understanding that materials to be provided in May 2024 to allow for these other landmark recommendations to be executed?
Motion to continue VV 22 10 016B to continue with a target date of resubmission in May to allow time for application of product recommended by the Landmark Foundation.
In the meantime, the commission will work with the applicant on the environmental court to see if we can provide them what they need through staff, right?
Do you accept that amendment to
I
your
do.
motion?
Yes.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Anything else that we are missing, Morgan?
No, I don't believe so.
Are we missing anything in that motion?
The only thing I would request is that staff give us written verification that we may use a higher PSI than 300 to apply to try and remove the paint.
And I'll verify that with our office.
Okay.
So amendment to motion that staff will provide written notification of allowed higher PSI for removal.
Jeff, do you agree with that? Your second?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Applicant is continued. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am. We
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for talking it through.
Have a good holiday.
You too.
Next application is BB 23-09018, 335 West Third Avenue. This is continued as well.
Sean, do you want me to?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
4:40 PM on 12/13/2023, Commissioner Dotson is present.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Thank you.
Commissioner Dawes. I remember that.
Got here about 15 minutes ago.
Just teasing.
Perfect. Can you state your name, get you sworn in?
Amanda Dunfield.
Okay. Do you agree to tell the truth? There's nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, we're ready. Yes, ma'am.
Proposed work description for 335 West Third Avenue. Replace existing storefront windows on the north elevation with new wood glass storefront within the existing openings per submitted documentation. Install new masonry storefront openings on the west elevation per submitted drawings. Install new canvas awnings with steel frame tubing on north and west elevations, similar to the existing design per submitted documentation. Preformed metal gutters would be along the perimeter of the entire canopy. Install new patio space along Harrison West Avenue and the rear south of the building. Rear patio would be partially covered over the exterior bar with a new steel channel canopy per submitted documentation. The area would also include a new 36-inch cedar planter and plantings, as well as a 42-inch metal fence on the west elevation and 72-inch horizontal cedar fence on east and south elevations per submitted documentation. Planting beds would also be included on the east elevation, and 4 trees would be included along the fence line of the south elevation. Staff analysis. The following minutes are included within this. It's November 8, 2023. There's a lot, so.
No worries.
And August 9, 2023. Staff recommendation, staff recommends approval of application BB 23-09018, 335 West Third Avenue, as submitted with any all clarifications submitted to staff prior to issuance of certificate with the following conditions: to select option 1 or 4 from the proposed sconces on the building that is currently referred to as LT1 on the elevations, lights to be installed via mortar joints, and revised elevation drawings to indicate the location of the LT2 patio awning downlights to be included. Basis of staff rec is City Code 311611, standards for alteration, short north design guidelines, commercial patios and outdoor dining, as well as lighting and signage, and projecting blade sign guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. To get over to you, I know that you've been here a few months, so thank you so much. Obviously, working through this process, it seems like we're getting big.
I know.
I hope so.
So, I don't know if we necessarily have to go through a whole presentation because it seems like everything's favorable in terms of going in that direction.
Yep.
But, just high level, some of the things that staff is recommending, is there anything that we should really focus on regarding those items?
Yeah,
In your presentation too as well?
so the things that changed from the last time we were in this meeting is we showed the awnings as that are on Third Street as they are. They're going to be replaced in that same rhythm, right? And then let's see, the other thing was including options for the light fixtures, for the exterior light fixtures. And so staff said they liked 1 and 4, is that correct?
We would recommend either or.
Okay. So.
One's a great.
Do you have a preference of the two?
I don't know. I mean, to me, I think one is more, like classic. The 4 is a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit more modern. So,
LT1 is
I
probably,
think,
LT1.
I think one is just
One's probably
it's simple and clean. Yeah.
It seems like LT1 and LT2 have a very similar fixture family, you know, kind of presence to them, so.
yes.
It seems like it would be applicable.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So the only thing that I was questioning, because I think everything is here,
Yes, sir.
and as we go on down into detail, I think that we've asked before, we see there's planting material, but we don't know the age of it or anything like that. That's the only thing that I see on this that really is not in the picture. Everything else is here.
I would agree with that.
What the actual plants are going to
Specific
be.
species, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So
I
you
feel like
you
we've,
could plant a 6-month-old boxwood and say, well, in 4 years, they're gonna be 4 foot.
sure.
That makes sense. Now, it
We
might have
have-
been part of another application.
Was it in
beforehand,
previous materials?
Yeah, I mean, like, I know we've had some of them called out. I'm just wondering where they are.
And yeah, and I'd be open for that being a broken out section, split out section that could be
Staff would put up, well, just a.
Yeah,
a
A separate
committee
little
or, yeah.
subcommittee that we
Yeah.
can do that quickly.
I
If
mean,
you don't have it.
yeah,
I'm seeing partial information that, you know, it's river birch or equal or, you know, a note that says plant screening, but I'm not seeing anything that says it's exactly what it is.
okay, yeah,
Installed sizes.
Yeah, I mean, it might be all there. We just don't see it.
no, I know, I'm like, we've done so many versions of this.
Granular.
I mean, of course, like that level of information for plantings would normally come later on in this whole process.
Yes.
So if there can be a staff approval, like along with like, and I don't know, I guess, when we get ready to submit for permit, there needs to be a review to make sure that what has been agreed to here is actually showing up in the building permit. Is that correct? Yeah. So at that point, it would make sense for me that that information would be in there.
That's fair. But it may be beneficial if you were along those lines, if you're pushing towards that set. If you were to open up another application that would be just for the landscape
Plant.
portion,
Plant.
for plantings,
So get rid of this and.
you know, and that may be something that comes to us. And if it helped in timing, it could be an application. Or it could be something that we could address as a subcommittee, as long as the spirit of what we're approving today is maintained,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
These are more clarifications than,
Yes.
So-
I think that makes sense versus
Okay.
it needing to be a
Hmm.
full-blown application. I mean, it's such a simple planting plan. There's not a lot of
Correct,
material
exactly.
we're talking about that.
I mean, are you comfortable with staff approval?
but to say, so Morgan, how would you want to do
I'm gonna
that?
do a subcommittee. That's what I would be comfortable with.
That's what I would recommend,
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
for the revised landscaping plan to be sent to staff, to be sent to subcommittee.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay.
Is
And I
that
think
fair?
that's probably the easiest route also, so you don't have to do a reapplication, it's just a tab.
Perfect.
Great.
Good stuff. Anything else? Sure. All right, so is there a motion team?
Motion for VV 23 09 018 335 West Third, as submitted with the clarification that light fixture 1 of the 4 options is chosen for the sconce, and that the final planting plan, including species and install sizes, are provided when available for subcommittee review.
Before we second that motion, would the commissioners like to include the other staff recommended items or staff conditional items? just lights to be installed via mortar joints and for the revised, lighting plan for the LT two, to be sent in. So,
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
just wanted to confirm
Yes,
those
yes,
additions
yes
we
to that.
listed. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Is there a second?
Second?
Any other further discussion? All those,
Do we want to say who's going to be?
Yeah, so-
Yeah, so-
Oh,
thank you so much.
thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Me,
Tim, Tim and I.
Commissioner Hissom and Commissioner Skinner. Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, thank you. Happy New Year.
Yes. Thank you all.
We're gonna miss you. But we still have Dustin games.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And real quick, Commissioners, who seconded that?
I did.
That was.
All right. Next application will be VV 2312-010, 1061 Needle Avenue. These are our new applications.
Perfect. Do you want to state your name, sir? Hello, and I'll get you sworn in.
Sure, Peter Anderson.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I am.
Thank you, sir. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. For 1061 Needle Avenue.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, that's it. You can stay there or you can, yeah, perfect. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You're welcome.
So this is to install roof-mounted solar panels and accompanying equipment on detached garage facing the alley per submitted documentation. Staff analysis, Columbus School is 100% renewable energy by 2022 and to be carbon neutral by 2050. Clean energy can include sources such as wind, hydro, and solar. Use of renewable energy such as solar collectors is encouraged and should be designed, sized, and located to minimize any effect on the character of a historic building. While the Victorian District guidelines do not currently address solar energy specifically, guidelines should be based on recommendations of the National Park Service. These are from the following. Preferred locations for solar collectors include site raised in a rear or side yard, on the roof of an addition or secondary structure, or on the rear portions of the roof on the primary structure. Locating collectors on the front portion of a roof oriented to the side yard is acceptable when preferred locations are not feasible. Minimize visual impacts by setting collectors back from the facade of the building. Install a collector in such a way that can be removed and the original character easily restored. Mount collectors flush below the ridgeline on a sloping roof. Attach solar collectors to a historic roof in a minimally invasive and reversible manner. Minimize visual impacts by setting collectors back from the eaves. Avoid obscuring significant features or adversely affecting the overall character of the property. Exposed hardware, frames, and piping should have a matte finish and be consistent with the color scheme of the structure. Collectors located on a primary street-facing roof slope is not appropriate. Collectors located in the backyard is not appropriate. At the December business meeting, Commissioners had the following requests and statements. The Commissioner requested a drawing that shows how the conduit would be routed, whether it would be through the roof, and where all exterior mounted equipment would be exactly located. Commission did not note that the panels would be visible from the alley. Or did note that the panels would be visible from the alley. So they would like to see context photographs that show the view of the property from the intersection and further context of the alley. Find my paper. All right, Commissioners present noted that an alley facing condition is not one that has been previously approved in the neighborhood. So further discussion will be required for them to gain a better understanding of the project to avoid setting inappropriate precedents. Staff note, after looking at the aerial of the overall property, staff noticed a rear single-story addition and locations on the main roof of home. There could be other possible locations for the solar panels. Roof material in house is currently asphalt shingles. Staff recommends either options. A, continuation of application, BV 2312-010, 1061 Neal Avenue, to allow applicant time to look into different installation locations for solar panels on other areas on the property, such as the main home or addition off the rear of home. Or approve application BV 2312-010, 1061 Neal Avenue with the following condition: to install solar panels on the east facing roof line of garage to lessen visual impact. Basis of staff recommendation is City Code 311611, standards for alteration, number 2 and 12.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, kick it over to you, sir.
So I think one of the concerns or questions had to do with the location of conduit. And you'll see in the new material provided that this is to be installed by Ohio Power Solutions, that the conduit would enter through a perforation in the roof underneath the solar panel. My understanding from Ohio Power Solutions is a solar disconnect would go. Actually, that's a great. I'm not sure who's doing the pictures, but this is a good one here.
Yeah.
Where you can see the AEP weatherhead coming in on the north face of the hip or gable. There would be a disconnect on the side of the garage there. But it wouldn't face the
And then all the conduit and such will be ran in the interior of the garage from the disconnect. And then
Yes.
to the penetration that's in the roof underneath the solar panels.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be any conduit adjoining the AEP conduit. That would be inside the garage.
Okay.
Right. The other aspect had to do with the location of the solar panels. And I think I'm on my third solar quote at this point. And we did explore locating panels on the southern face of the main house. But the number of perforations, there are vents for bathrooms, there are 2 chimneys, there are also 2 skylights. And fire code requires that solar cells can't be located too close to any hips or ridges. And that combined with the aspects of servicing panels on a 1/1 roof that far above the ground just makes it not ideal, I think would be understating. So we look to the garage, and as you can see, the garage has a westerly facing roof. That's the proposed roof. And an easterly facing roof, and we explored and did modeling on the easterly facing roof, which faces into the yard. But we have substantial trees that would either need to be cut down in order to make this a productive site. And I prefer not to cut down the trees. So with regard to the site, the only viable site would seem to be this westerly facing roof of the hipped garage. I
So,
think some examples were provided for other garages. I think one of them may be in the neighborhood. And the garages I've seen, indeed, they have, I think, simple roofs that face north or south.
Yes.
As opposed to this, which has the roof facing east and west.
Anything else, sir, before we talk through some comments?
I think that's it. Yeah, I think those were the 2 key concerns. I want to make sure I address those.
Yes, sir. They've been addressed, so helping, very helpful.
so my only comment, I'm okay with this application. I think what happens is when it becomes present on the alley, is it reflective? Is there a matte finish? Do you know what the finish is as far as neighbors and windows? And
Oh, I see.
and stuff goes. I mean, because obviously this is where you're gonna maximize flat
Exactly.
panel, all on one surface, not very
Right.
high up.
Yeah.
But what is that finish? Because I would be kind of upset in the winter or the spring, wherever the sun rises, and, my bedroom gets, my curtains get fried because there's a reflection.
Right. I'm not the solar expert on this. There are pictures of 2 other garages where I think you can see the sense of what they look like.
I mean, it would be helpful for us as a commission, because we're tiptoeing, the things of penetrating the garage and the boxes and stuff like that. We're walking on learning. It would be nice if the solar company could have some samples of, there might be a very reflective surface, there might be a medium, there might be a matte. In your yard, those things aren't reflective at all, but in other applications, there is a reflection
Mhm.
on that cell. So it would be nice to be able to see that. So we would kind of know going in on that, because that's kind of, you see that, that's sort of what we're looking at there is sort of reflective. So
Sure.
that would be helpful for us, I think, because I think the rest of it, you've answered all our questions and you
Mhm.
met our requirements.
Yeah, I'm not an expert enough on the type of glass that whether there's reflective or non-reflective versions.
Can your supplier get those?
I think so, yeah. I think the product is mentioned here. It's Silco is the manufacturer.
I think that would be helpful.
Would it be a recommendation that if the product comes in a non-reflective surface, that be used? Or what would you prefer? I'm not sure non-reflective panels are available. But if they were, the recommendation would be to employ or use those.
I mean, I guess I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah.
All I know is when I see, your little yard light or your thing that's on the side of the building, I can look at it, it's not reflective. But I see other installations on bigger things where it's definitely a reflective surface. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I'm sure we're into third or fourth generation cells by now,
Mhm.
that I'm sure they have different finishes. So it would be helpful for us from your manufacturer to get samples, so it'd make our lives easier.
Does it help that it has a anti-reflective coating specified?
I don't know what that means though, right?
Well, because I think,
Anti-reflective coating.
right, well, I mean, by design, right, the goal of the
You're
bid.
the engineer, I'm
Right,
listening.
I'm gonna go to the engineer.
Okay,
So by design, a solar panel is supposed to collect the sun, and anything that would radiate back or that you would see back as visible light is gonna then make them less efficient. So it's in their best interest to have it be as least reflective as possible during manufacturing.
okay.
So to your point, I don't know what that looks like, but I can tell you that I don't think I've ever seen anything specified with different finishes or anything like that, but I'm not an expert on it either.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's fair. I know that there's probably some maybe inefficiencies related to, or maybe economies possibly related to looking at the main house. I know that there's penetrations, existing penetrations and such, but I mean, personally, I still have a little fear in terms of the sense of presence and how can we maintain an ability to screen them to be in alignment with some of the other installations. I do remember that there was a pretty complex install or possibly, or that was proposed for an address on Second, that was on the second floor. It was kind of broken up into locations.
Yeah.
And it was, it was up on the second floor, right? And it was a pretty complex, I'm going to say, roof, historic roof application that forced them to kind of think, outside the box in terms of the install. And so I just would love to understand the viability of that option, just because of the sense of presence and just being able to, establish a set of kind of criteria that as we are challenged with this, in the district, that we can kind of continue to uphold. I think that, Jeff brings up a great point. I think a lot of it is not necessarily just a visual impact. It's just being considerate to others too as well. And so how can we continue to, evaluate locations that provides both of those things? So that's what I guess those are my thoughts as it relates to the installation. Yeah.
And I think you're right, you probably have a code problem if you try to put them on the back of the house or once in the cell.
Self-facing side.
Yeah, my guess is there actually may be a code violation if you try to do that, but
I think we can only fit 4 panels
Oh, gotcha.
because fire code requires a set off
Setback.
from each of the ridges and the valleys. in any perforations, and it's just not, there'd be conduit running around to a disparate set of 4 panels that they try to fit in.
Is there
And
anything
sunroof for the
on,
house.
is there anything on, and that's just a smaller addition, is there anything on the existing home?
Oh, I'm talking about on the existing southern face,
Got it.
and it's a 4 square.
Yeah.
That's hipped on all 4 sides. So that leads to a more complicated roof pattern. That was my preference because it would be much more productive,
For sure.
high up above trees, southerly facing, but it's not economically viable from a maintenance standpoint, nor from a productivity standpoint, with all the labor of putting in conduit and wiring, only to have 4 panels
Yeah.
that can be positioned.
Understand.
I could potentially get rid of skylights, which might add a panel or 2,
Right,
but
right.
it's too complicated a roof.
It's your concern setting precedent.
Yeah, completely, 100%. And that's just, it's just, I think that we, as a collective, over the course of, the last few years of being able to, when these things have been introduced, I think that's been the narrative. And I just, I understand some of the constraints, it's just, I just want to try to stay at least somewhat consistent,
I heard in the National Park Service guidelines that secondary structures would be preferred, which is what this is. It's a secondary structure.
For sure.
I mean, we talked at the business meeting, and precedent is a concern. Could wade the toe into the water by saying, well, it's on an alley, it's not on a street, right? That's it's on the middle ground. I mean, we're gonna get more of these.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So it's like, I don't know that it's something that's in the commission's best interest to be the guys that are saying no to all the solar applications that may.
Well, I mean, and just in looking at this, okay, so you look at anti-reflective, now there's, you just really quickly, there's anti-reflective coating and there's anti-glare coating. So, I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not an engineer.
Well, the next question I would, because if you really want to go there, I'd be like, okay, what are the angles of the sun and show me where they would face? So like,
Well, but I mean, that's why we do sun studies in certain applications here.
right, well, but I'm saying we can't be doing sun studies for every solar installation, right? For a 2.
No, but what I'm saying, Reed, is this. We don't have enough information. All of a sudden, we have, it's this installation with this coating and this works within these parameters. So we're not doing one-offs all the time. We start to build a kit of materials that are acceptable within the commission. And we started with, does it penetrate or is it on the outside? Because the first ones came out on the outside and went along the side of it and we said, no. And so we're building up this stuff. So I think we need to know what we're deciding and not just go, oh, it says it's not reflective or, oh, it says this. Because this is how we learn here.
I appreciate that.
That's my big thing.
So, understandable, and you've been very helpful to answer some of these questions, and just for sure. So it seems like, is there a possibility of being able to get, I guess, 2 things, and just kind of thinking out loud, and now obviously team add to this, is materials. I think just some kind of understanding of the surface material of these options for the install that would address glare and reflectivity. And I think that is kind of coming to the forefront because of the hardship related to the locations that are being forced to give consideration to relocating it to something that's more visual. Right, at the rear of the garage. And then if there's any information that you can provide from the manufacturer that talks about the constraint of the existing home and those conditions, I think that I would love to have that information in the motion. They kind of push us towards this secondary structure. But I think that we're going to have that series of evaluations for every case. And instead of it just being, they did it and that's okay. You know what I mean? So just kind of help us build this story. I think that that's what we're asking for. Is that fair?
Sure. And as far as the manufacturer, I would go to Ohio Power Solutions. They don't manufacture the solar cells, but they're the installer.
They would understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And as far as samples go, yeah, I'll see if I can arrange that. I mean, the panels themselves are 5 feet tall by,
And I would presume that they have something that they're toting around at smaller scale. It's just
Sample
something to get a
scale.
feel. Just, yeah,
perhaps
just,
so, yeah.
that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Are we missing anything at all? Yeah. Morgan?
I don't think so.
Okay, so are we okay to continue this, to allow you to kind of collect this data? From that perspective, is that acceptable?
Yeah, I'll speak to Ohio Power Solutions.
Okay.
And address these two aspects about glare and reflectivity and aspects of the constraint in terms of installing solar cells on the southerly facing part of the main
Yes, sir.
property, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That'd be helpful. Okay. All right, is there a motion to continue? Tim?
Motion to continue, application BB 23121010.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for helping us.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I can see it's a new process.
It is, for sure. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Very much.
Sure.
We're on to application BB 12-011, 1226 Forsyth Avenue.
Switch chairs. Look back there again. Hello, family.
Hello, hello. Can you guys state your name, get you sworn in?
Daniel Shu Hollander, Shad Morris contractor.
Perfect. Do you go agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you guys. Go ahead, Morgan. Thank you.
Proposed work description, construct a two-story carriage house. Proposed footprint will measure 25 feet 5 inches deep by 20 feet wide, being offset from the alley by 2 feet 8 inches per submitted documentation. Carriage house would measure 26 feet by 1 3/4 inch overall, with Owens Corning Supreme 3-tab shingles in estate gray. Windows would be a Mormon elevate 2/2 double hung. Staff analysis, the following is taken from the approved October 11th, 2023 Victorian Village Commission meeting minutes. Commissioner comments, proposed carriage house. The massing of proposed carriage house looks off. The house and garage need to talk to each other, and the carriage house should complement the house. Commissioner suggested scaling it down. A story and a half may be better to fit into the existing context than proposed two. Having 2 dormers on the sides with a front gable or front facing gable roof mirroring the roof of the house may also assist in the structure being more appropriate. The applicant was encouraged to look at the proportions of the lot and site to ensure that everything balances in the end. Preliminary scaled measured drawings are needed to understand the massing. Commissioners request an elevation drawing of the site, including both proposed carriage house and a scaled measured elevation drawing of the alley to see how the proposed structure fits in with the context around it. At the December business meeting, Commissioners had the following requests and statements. Commissioner noted that the carriage house seemed tall and the proportions felt large in comparison to the house on the lot. Commissioners noted that the context is important and requested photographs of the other buildings that face the alley to understand the context of the garage. A section drawing for the carriage house was requested so the commission can understand why the building is so tall. A massing elevation that shows both the home and carriage house was requested to see how the buildings interact with each other. One commissioner asked why the 3 windows on the west elevation are offset from the center. The applicant has supplied updated site plans as well as elevation drawings. They've also submitted the following responses to the commissioners' business meeting feedback. They supplied views that show the garage scale to house, as well as views and renderings that the proposed garage and alley context. The building was similar to the house in some surrounding context and scale and height, with the roof being slightly lowered from the main home. In response to the 3 offset windows located on the west elevation, the reason they were offset from center was due to conflict with the interior wall. The elevations have been adjusted so all windows are symmetrical and appropriately aligned. Staff note, as viewed on Google Street View, the existing garages on the alley are single-story, 2-car garages. Staff recommends that the applicant contact Department of Building and Zoning Services to ensure no variances are required and for applicant to consider 2 separate garage doors instead of 1 single garage door. If one is required, the turning radius, if one is required for the turning radius, applicant to look into making it appear as 2 separate doors. Staff recommends a continuation of application, BV 23-12-011-1226 Forsyth Avenue, to allow the applicant time to bring their proposal in line with the applicable city code and guidelines. Basis of staff rec is City Code 311612, standards for new construction, and Victorian Village guidelines, new construction.
Thank you, Morgan. So welcome back, obviously. So I think you've heard what staff had to say. I think there was some comments that were shared. We appreciate, obviously, the additional information from the business meeting, so thank you. But I'll turn it over to you guys to kind of walk us through anything, or if you have some questions, and then we'll get into comments.
I don't think we have any questions. I think we're just basically waiting to see what you think of the drawings that we resubmitted. And I think we addressed everything that you were asking us as far as like from the roof line, talking to each other, and then the windows, and then the lower elevation and the garage door, and et cetera.
Awesome. All right. So
We just basically turned it over to our architect and said, this is what you guys want, make it happen.
got it.
So
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Comments, reactions from the information that has been advanced.
Excitement.
Sorry.
excitement.
Always excited.
Always
excited. Always excited. So, any thoughts?
Well, my only point, and we've talked about the scale of this for quite some time. If we looked at the revised drawings, the massing of the garage is almost as big as the massing of the house.
Yeah.
I mean, that, and I think that was our leading comment on how much program is in that structure.
Yeah.
That's my main point.
I mean, I don't think it can go any like smaller if you want to make a functional carriage house.
And they're the same width. The
Yeah.
house and the carriage house are the same width.
What I'm saying is when you squint, there's this piece, which is the carriage house, and there's this other piece of the same magnitude,
Mhm.
which is the house, with a one-story addition on it. So what we were saying is these things, they talk to one another, they're both equal. One's not submissive to the other, being, here's my main building, here's my outbuilding.
Well, the house is considerably larger than the carriage house.
When you put the first story addition, when you put that first story piece on the back of it. But if you're looking at the house and that garage and the massing within that garage, they're basically equal.
Living space, I would say no, but
That's
structure
where,
sizes.
from the computer generated, we've never gotten to the point, this drawing really tells us what we're looking at.
For sure. I think that's what.
And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, Jeff, because just to help them, because during those conversations, that's why we were asking for
Mhm.
a composite, right, drawing, is to be able to really get a feel for, what are we seeing? Because if you only look at the carriage house without the sense of context, you can't answer that question until you see it. And so I think and that's very helpful, the information that you're
Right.
seeing.
Yeah, I think one picture, it does show this carriage house. If you, that's the one house that show how this carriage house look in the back.
Right, and I guess what I'm saying is that to Jeff's point, Jeff hasn't been able, or nor has any of the other commissioners been able to say that until the review of these kind of composite drawings. That's
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There's a couple view,
Yeah.
this
Mhm.
side view and there's a couple picture, I think, they show.
And some of the other
There's
carriage
another
houses,
picture show too.
some of the other carriage houses in that alley
Yeah.
are proportionate to what, actually maybe even a little bit bigger than what we're proposing. There's one on the opposite side of the alley, a little bit further down, and you can see kind of how it's sticking out a little bit. It's
Yeah,
the
that's
same
right
proportion
there.
of what their house is also.
Yeah.
So we kind of looked around the neighborhood to see what, because you always say, look around the neighborhood and see what's around there. And so we're trying to take your advice. And
And then go back to,
Oh, there it is, that gray one.
okay, now do you see your carriage house there, the white one?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. When I look at elevation, the south elevation,
Mhm.
okay? The distance between the top of the door to the eave is a telltale sign that you're trying to get height somewhere. I mean, that's that's probably 3 foot that could be brought down on the height of that thing, where your roof line is, it's not this, it's this. Now, does that mean I'm gonna have 9-foot ceilings in my upstairs? Probably not.
Right,
Or am I gonna have 3 foot of storage above my cars? Probably not.
right.
And that's what we talk about massing and program when we look at these things.
What, can you go slide back that way a little bit? Right there. What's the top left of that picture right there? What's the max height on this project? I can't quite read that one.
It's almost 25 feet, I think is
Um,
proposed.
24 feet, 11 inches and 3/8.
Okay.
We can't, I don't think, I was talked to architect, can we lower the garage? The architect said, no, you have to have minimum requirement how the garage is per the zoning.
Oh.
And we gotta have at least 8-foot ceilings. We can't drop a 7-foot ceiling inside the carriage house to get the square footage for building codes. And you can't really go to a flatter roof. I see what you're saying. If you go to a flatter, but with this, the width of this thing only being 16 or 18 feet wide, you have to have a good pitch on there for the rain, for water to run off.
So wait,
That's another
go
problem.
back. No, come on, go up. I want to see the section.
Oh, the section.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah.
So,
Right there, on
and
the
then,
right corner section. Yeah, screwed up.
let's zoom in on that. So what are those heights? That's 8.6 to the lowest. That's not 8.6. So you're talking, that's a full 8.6. That's huge height in a carriage house.
Okay, so we drop it down 6 inches. Is 6 inches gonna make that much of a difference?
Yeah, the height is A6, that's.
Yeah, I mean, even if we drop it 6 inches, is that gonna give us what you're wanting?
So something's not jiving here. Because the elevation of that.
You're right. You're right. I see exactly what you're saying. If you look here at the garage door track, right, as an example, and how that relates to where the eave is, right, it looks like that those are fairly close together, relatively speaking. But if you look at how the house is rendered
That's south.
on that alley view, there's like, I mean, I don't know have the
Easily
dimension,
2 foot.
but you've got several feet above the garage door before you hit the eave, and that's what I think Jeffrey is saying doesn't fit right. Can you go back one page? And go up to, or right there, and then upper left, this what kind of south elevation?
I mean, I don't think that's the scale. I see what you're saying. You think
Right,
that's a huge space right there.
Exactly. So but that's not reading the same as the other.
But there's no dimensions on that far left one. See what I'm saying? There's no.
Well, I mean, there's dimensions on the right one, which is the same height. I mean, and if it's not to scale drawings, then we have a
No, it should, I mean,
That's
that's the back of the house right there, or the side of the house.
Right.
Okay, so
I guess I'm just lost on
let me
there.
go ahead. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna go ahead and just, let's just try to see if we can kind of help move the conversation forward a little bit. And so, can we just go around and just offer comments of what we're seeing? And then we'll give the applicant maybe a second to clarify anything real quick, so we don't have as much back and forth to extend into some of the applications, if that's okay. So, anyone have any observations they want to share quickly?
So the only thing I would say, we've said this in many big buildings. Some of the people in the audience has heard this from us, from a big building standpoint. There's too much program and the scale is too big. I think that's the easiest way to say.
Look,
Any?
I'll wait, sorry, I know, I forgot,
guys.
I know, you're fine.
Thumbs up. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, just like the massing is up. And that may be a product of kind of the double dormer on the pitch of the roof. But it's, and I brought this up, I think, first time conceptually this came up, it just doesn't feel right, from a massing perspective. There's too much up top.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Anything else? I'll pursue too as well. Go ahead. Yeah.
I second the opinion, so there is something off about the proportion of the upper to the lower, that I think it's particularly in that one elevation, that lift elevation, and it's not there yet.
Awesome. Read anything?
I mean, I think we've hit most everything. I mean, the other stuff may be minor. You know, from just that, I hate to give this subjective comments, but the dormer, the angles of the dormers don't quite look right. Right. I know you make it steeper, you got more, making the problem worse in terms of the roof height, but it looks like this suburban.
It does.
Dormers, so we got to dial that back somehow.
Okay. So I'm just offer same thoughts. So scale, I think what we were trying to do is trying to understand and evaluate if we could get something that will be a 1.5 story kind of expression versus a 2-story kind of expression, just to try to balance it back out on the site. I think what you're challenged with too as well is the 2-car garage. The 2-car garage versus a 3-car garage. You'll see that a lot on, is being able to balance proportions because you have a little bit more building area. And so the 2-car is definitely a challenge. There are some that are in the neighborhood that have been, kind of accomplished pretty successfully though. The north and the south facade, I would agree with the team, compositionally just kind of feels a little odd. The proportions of it feels a little bit suburban. It may be a situation where the dormers needs to be kind of rethought. I know that there's an impact to the interior program, but that's not where we fall. We kind of fall on kind of balancing out the exterior. I would definitely kind of push for the double. I would say the double door. I think the more that you can break down the scale of this thing, I think that you're going to be more successful. So I would challenge you to kind of think about that. Instead of one giant dormer, is there 2 dormers? Instead of one giant door, is there 2 doors? So I think breaking down that, I think is going to help with the scalability and the composition of what it has to offer. So those are just at least maybe some suggestive comments.
So just one other thing to add that I think might be helpful for us, but I think the issue that we're having here, right, is that it's a very narrow lot, right? And when we typically see some of these carriage houses, right, they're wider and you have more room to do the hip roofs and make everything look right and still have the height because you've got more width to work with. Whereas here, this is very narrow, and to get the headroom that you need to make the space work, there's just not enough. There's just not enough width to make it happen and have it look right. Right. So that's where we're challenged with is how do you make this look right even though it's such a narrow building.
Awesome. Perfect. No, great suggestion. So
Can I ask a question?
now.
Oh, okay.
But I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure that we can continue to move this thing forward. So,
Oh, yeah.
okay, so now.
So I have an
I'm gonna
idea.
interrupt You guys for a second. Yes.
What if we take the dormers on both sides out completely? We talked about this in one of the meetings in the very beginning, and I think somebody suggested we add dormers. But see this view we have on the left side here, above those 2 windows? What if we took that dormer roof line right there and made that the upper roof? So it's one roof, and this, like Jeff said, matches the roof of the house. So it talks to the house.
Same thing.
And we take the dormers completely out. Now,
So turn the roof sideways and take off the dormers.
pretty much, I mean, you're just basically taking that dormer on the front of the house there, raising it up to go straight back. So you're just basically gonna have a structure that's gonna look like this, going front to back. It's still gonna, it should still give us the room on the inside to keep the walls we need. But it's gonna just be, it's almost like the old balloon framing in most of these houses. just gonna have straight walls that go to the second floor and then just have one roof system
Yeah,
that goes across.
and it's gonna echo the house way better.
It'll look like the house. As long as we can satisfy you and satisfy the building department,
Mhm.
we have to be able to do both, unfortunately. I mean, we can't say yes to you and no to them and vice versa.
For sure.
So if we did that, that might obviously look better. It might scale it down because then you don't have the dormers facing both sides, coming out both sides.
Well, and you might have less problem with us with the massing because it's gonna just look different.
It's
right?
gonna look
You're not
like
gonna
a-
have this big distinction.
Like a 1990s built house. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, that's what it's gonna look like. How they used to build all the houses just like Bloomington.
What you're saying is it will look like this.
Right? If you took those,
Up front,
Right,
straight.
You would cut those
so
two
it'll be
off.
Elongated,
yeah.
and you just have to break up the beadboard. So,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would recommend
Yeah,
making
I mean,
the
that's-
pitch the same pitch as the roof.
that's what I'm hearing is you don't like the dormers now and we can't. So if we can still get the same square footage and height that we need for inside, that, and then again, we're speaking to the house again. That's like Jeff said. So are you understanding what I'm saying? Are you on board with that?
Yeah, I'm
So-
on board. I mean, I don't.
And then we're actually saving room instead of gaining room with a single door versus the two doors. Now, we can get a garage door that looks like two doors. I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, those are standard.
I think the original design was two.
Was
car
two door,
garage.
right.
I think when you draw it up again, they put the wrong, I think he forgot about it.
Well, and the one door actually,
Yeah.
actually saves us room. Now, it doesn't give us, the two doors cost us room.
Yeah.
By the time we put the middle piece
And
in,
I think it's a composition game, right?
Yeah.
Too as well.
Right.
So
Easier because there's a hole at the structure behind there, right? Two door, it's hard to navigate.
there's no way they're gonna get in and out of
And
it.
I think, I think the staff had just mentioned, I think our requirements are to single doors.
Right.
That's the requirement. If there's hardships based upon the width of the alley or things of that nature that hasn't been presented,
Right.
I think the staff was kind of suggesting that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, definitely, because there's just no way, we would have to set this back 6 to 8 feet inside the property line, out of the alley. So to give them enough room to be able to back in and out of a single car garage.
So I think one of the things though, as part of that next exploration, I mean, we don't want you to, I don't know if it's required for you to go this far for that review. So, I mean, I would hate for them to be in a situation where they take a step, go this direction, and then try to complete that application all the way through.
I would have the architect do a couple quick sketches.
That's correct.
So
So,
we get the idea, and then they can, not to this level of
That's
detail,
right.
but
are you guys understanding? So I know that we're asking for information, but in terms of this new option, but the new option doesn't have to be conceptualized all the way and finalized. I'm presuming that you guys are not breaking ground till spring.
We're gonna break ground as soon as you say we're ready.
Yeah.
Okay. But every time that update, there's probably costs associated with it, okay?
100%.
So you guys can balance that, but I guess what we're saying is that we won't require full construction drawings
Right.
of this next option as part of our review of the massing.
Well, these are just renderings. These are all just, yeah.
It's just something
Okay,
that I think that is appropriate for us to say.
okay.
So,
You just wanna see if it looks
With
like,
that, not complete construction drawings, but we will still need full elevation.
That's
drawings.
like, it's basically the same thing. It's, yeah.
For us to consider complete application
That's
from
correct.
HBO office.
That's correct.
So just.
Yeah.
And I would also just,
Policies they can.
as long as we're going down that road, make sure like the doors and the windows and everything, make sure that they follow the guidelines. You know, I think the doors and,
I think we have, the doors are okay, I believe, aren't they? Aren't the doors and windows still the same material and?
maybe I'm wrong.
It is Marvin Elevate,
Right.
that is an approved window. I will note just the configuration of the window itself is not typically what we see for an appropriate style
Right.
of window. Same thing with the door, it's typically a single light instead of a 6 light opening.
yeah, I think these are things that, if you guys remember on the previous kind of, I guess, home review, some of these things came up too as well. So I think it'd be very helpful. I mean, just think about the proportion of the windows and stuff right now. They start to feel residential. So if the architect kind of go back and look at some of the information that we've gone through on the home addition and the replacement of some of those windows, that should carry into this concept. So, I think that would help us.
Right, and it'd be the same windows that we put on the house, that way it's all matches and everything like that, yeah.
I think
It's
those
a
kind of
portion
things,
of it. If you look at the house, you know, where you've got the house in the garage, and you can see a nice tall windows in the house and then these little squat things on the garage, right? You know, you just make sure that all, okay, talks the same.
Anything else we can do to help?
Win the lottery?
You gotta buy your ticket.
Exactly. No, I think,
But again, I think that, you know, we've had great conversation on the home. You guys got to a good spot, you know, on the home, and I think that was a positive result of what we worked through.
the home's done,
So,
so.
exactly. So, you know, I mean, obviously, so hopefully, we can take that step here soon, right,
Okay.
on this. Anything else?
Nope.
So motion to continue?
Motion to continue VV 23-12 011 1226 Forsyth Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your
They'll
help.
probably be knocking down your door to be on the tour. Get your name out there.
Bring up the charger there.
Everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye.
Alright. On to application VV 2312-012, 30 Christ Avenue.
Hello, can you state your names and get you sworn in?
Jessica Sharon, Kirsty Hussing.
Perfect. Do you both agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you. Proposed work description, install faux foliage on previously approved wall sign, AV 2306-017A, first bit of documentation. Staff analysis, the canopy sign was previously approved in June 2023. The sign was approved with the condition that the faux foliage was not a part of the approval. At the August business meeting, commissioners had the following requests and statements. That was actually supposed to be for November, sorry, November business meeting. The elevations renderings don't show the plans as hanging. If the plants will be hanging, please update the elevations renderings to reflect this. The commission asked whether the installation is intended to be a permanent installation or if it will be seasonal, as the greenery year-round may look out of place. The commission had concerns about the greenery fading. Please provide additional product information, cut sheets, proposed plants. Please provide the height of the wall sign from the ground. Applicant responded to the commissioner's business meeting feedback with the following. The plants will not be hanging. They will be laying on the canopy. Applicant will be bringing samples in for the meeting. The greenery will are proposed to use an accent to the signage. It is of very high quality materials. The applicant is very focused on the exterior aesthetic and feels it will integrate into all seasons appropriately. The greenery is UV rated, has been tested for 1,000 hours against weathering and fading, and has a 5-year outdoor fade warranty. Applicant is budgeted for and prepared to replace the greenery after the 5-year mark, although the vendor has told they could last as long as 10 years before experiencing any fading. Applicant has provided spec sheets for proposed faux foliage as well as the height of the sign, the grade. Staff note, HPO does not encourage the use of faux plants. We recommend exploring other decorative signage alternatives to the faux plants. Staff recommendation is to continue application BB 2312-012 to allow applicant time to look into alternatives for canopy sign. Basis of staff rec would be City Code 311613, standards for site improvements, letter A.
Thank you, Maria. All right, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great. Well, I want to first introduce my colleague Kirsty Hussing. She works with me on the development department, and who knows? Maybe one day she'll come in front of you if there's some other development happening in Victorian Village. So appreciate the summary. We're really excited about this. I think it's going to be a really interesting component of the signage. The sign itself is still the star of the show, and we know that. The greenery is just an added element of interest. It's obviously called greenhouse. We thought it felt appropriate. You know, we have a living green wall at Gravity Phase 1. It's good, but it's taken us years to figure out how to get it looking good. And then it dies and has to get removed and replaced. And that is a green wall that had the integrated irrigation and everything. This doesn't have that opportunity. So we have worked with Oakland Interiors to find some faux greenery that we think looks really good, especially from the perspective of the ground level looking up. We actually have some photos. We worked with Oakland Green Interiors on an installation at Gravity Phase 2 that we're super happy with. Granted, it just got done this summer, but I think we've had some experiences now with them to know what looks really good, what looks, what's not gonna look so good. We've touched and felt this, Brett has touched and felt it, so understanding, from a historic perspective, it's maybe not, favorable, but especially given, the context of the neighborhood and the short north component of it, we feel really excited about it. I do want to clarify one thing, if we do want to pass this around, it's shown this way just for ease of, from what our vendor gave us, but how we'll do it is it will be installed within strips, and the strips will lay on the canopy sign, so it won't hang over, and that's why I really feel it will be more of an accent to the sign and less this, cascading green piece that is really like a feature.
So the rendering, just to clarify, so the rendering that, it wouldn't be the rendering, it'd be more about the color elevation, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, the rendering was from probably 2020. So.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else? I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I think that's it from our side.
Thank you. All right, so team, I know we're passing this around and kind of getting a feel for it, but obviously, any thoughts? I think they've kind of talked through the things that were discussion topics when the sign came in originally. Was, the UV, understanding how, what is this thing gonna look like over the life of the particular project or the sign itself, and so we.
So
pulled
will
that
you
off
see
of the-
through this, or will it just be something that sort of finishes the canopy? If it's laying horizontal?
It's laying horizontally, so you're not gonna see through it. There's not gonna be any cascading that your eyes go through. It's more like you're not even gonna be at the same plane as it, obviously, because it's up 12 feet or something. And then we have the canopy as the solid structure.
Yeah, solid.
So you are really gonna see, I think, like moments or peaking green, for lack of a better word, I guess.
So it's kind of kept in a contained
Yes, that is correct.
frame.
Yes, and that's our intention.
You're allowing it to kind of.
To have some
open up
volume, yeah.
a bit, just to provide that hint of, is the intention to do a
Exactly.
mixture of that?
Yep,
material?
yes, so there's one missing from here because we weren't actually happy with the quality, so we're going back on that one. And that was it's the one I can't pronounce, of course, what's it called? Let me find it here on this.
Gary.
Yeah, that one, yep,
Sure, I'll go through this.
Gary eye.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the only one you're not seeing, but the quality, once we get it, will be very similar to this.
Is it anchored? Is it just
Yeah,
laying
yeah.
it?
So right now, the
Fixed.
plan is like an epoxy glue, but we do want to assess when we get on site, and actually, it's probably is relevant to show you guys this, so. Without going too much into, yeah, sorry.
This is new materials we have not seen as yet. If the commission is fine with looking at the materials, that's okay, but typically for new materials that I've not seen, we do not present them at the meeting. But if the commission is fine with that.
I'm fine.
Okay, that is.
I was like, I don't have to show.
Sorry, it's just.
No.
First,
It's a
yeah.
process. I get it, I understand. So this was actually at Gravity Phase 2 at an existing building. The face and the butterfly are painted, but everything else is from this vendor. We actually didn't have an application method until we got on site. They did not use epoxy here. We actually had to drill into wood pieces that were drilled into the brick. But the plan on this project is to use epoxy glue. The only caveat, all that to say, is if they get out there and assess that it's not the right application method, they're not gonna do it. But this does help show, I think, the quality of what they do, although very different application.
Jessica, see if naturally.
Yes. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay,
So the channel, so if I'm looking at the section, the channel that holds the sign, does that channel return on either end as a tray? Or is it open or in?
Oh, on the short ends, basically?
Yes.
No, I think it returns on both sides. The canopy returns, because it also holds the sign within it. It's like a box in that way.
Okay. Okay, just
Yep. Yeah, I recognize the kind of stance on trying to stay away from faux plant material in general. I think this is a unique application as a sign slash art kind of installation. That given the kind of thoughtfulness to the containment of it, and the modest amount that I think we'll actually read through, I don't have issue. Personally.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I just think, I agree. I think this is a situation where it's kind of auxiliary to signage and it's not like planter boxes that are filled with a bunch of fake plants, right? This is really an accent to the signage and not really faux planting per se, that, generally is discouraged. So I think from my perspective, I'm fine with it as well.
It's not a hill we want to die on.
Correct. I mean, it's very discreet. It's, I think, just very limited to a particular signage and it's not, I think it's gonna look nice, but also I don't see anything in the guidelines that would prohibit something like this.
Yeah, I would agree. Just everything, obviously, that's why I was asking about the containment. And I think we took the right steps first, right? Is the sign itself, I think, is not dependent upon the accent. So let's just say that's the permanent thing. If, over the years, if this thing doesn't necessarily, weather right from that perspective, or there's some concern, it is just the accent. So we wouldn't be stuck with something that was integral, to the sign. So I think that gives us a little bit, or gives me a little bit more comfort in that regard. So, and I would agree, Reed, it's tough to try to understand, Rob, is if the guidelines really speak to this as kind of this element.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the only concern I have is about maintenance, right? So I think you said it has a 5-year warranty and 1,000 hour UV testing, which, just to be clear, that's less than a year of exposure to the sun, right? So, what is the maintenance plan for this? Over that, at the 5-year plan or?
Right, yeah, so I mean, day to day, there should be no minutes, obviously. We have budgeted, so one thing that we have to do is work with our operations team, not just in year one, but in all the years, so it really, for us, pretty much up to 10 years of anything that has a replacement cost, we have to provide that cost to our operations team, and they're required to put that in their budget. So now they aren't necessarily budgeting like completely 5 years out, but they have that information from us. And we're doing that for, fitness equipment. We're doing that for subscription services. We're doing it for EV chargers. Like this is not the only thing. So they are building that into their operating costs and know that the expiration date is at this point in the future. And we use a smart sheet to track all that. So to the extent I can give that assurance, who knows where we'll all be in 5 years, but that is the plan.
Good answer.
Yeah, along with the maintenance, I'm guessing you're gonna have some aerial visitors.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have all sorts of aerial visitors. We'll do that. Normal maintenance will happen. This building has a dedicated, as all our buildings do, has a dedicated maintenance person.
All right. Anything, is there anything further? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve BB 23-12-012 30 Price Avenue. Installation of faux foliage complementary to signage. There was no conditions, right?
No, and I'm just gonna ask in terms of, there's really no conditions, but is there any other clarifications that needs to be offered with the install? I don't think so. Anything?
I think just recognition that is a unique condition of the sign.
And I think the goal is to be representative of the south elevation and maybe not the renderings. Is that appropriate?
So I think we should say that this is a new material, this is site specific.
Got it. That's why I'm just gonna need some help with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Site-specific
Okay.
material.
got it. Is that agreeable to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
Great, thank you. Alright. Applicant is the same for the, number 8 application for BB 2312-013 for 30 Grace Avenue. Applicant has already been sworn. We have another. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Can you state your name, sir, get you sworn in?
Sure, Andrew Lundberg?
Perfect. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Proposed work description, install an 8-foot 5-inch tall and 7-foot long ground sign for submitted documentation. Base of sculptural ground sign to be 2 feet wide and to include uplighting for submitted documentation. Staff analysis, landscaping and hardscaping were previously approved in February 2023. BV 2302-004. The mention of an outdoor sculpture piece to be added in the location that is now being proposed as a ground sign. HPO staff informed applicant that ground signs are generally not appropriate per the short north design guidelines unless there's no other feasible sign option. However, if they are the only feasible options, then the height may not exceed 5 feet measured at grade, including any mounting platforms or sign base, and the maximum allowable area is 10 square feet, including any mounting platform or sign base. We would recommend that the signage be revised to align with the staff we recommended at the time that the signage would be revised to align with the short north design guidelines for signage. At the November business meeting, commissioners had the following requests and statements. Commission noted that seeing the sign in plan view would be helpful. Please include the landscaping and plan view of the sign. Commission requested the HPO staff include the previously approved seaway for landscaping in the packet, which is included. Staff recommends to continue application BB 2312-013 to allow applicant time to look into different design options for the signage. Basis of staff rec is short north design guidelines. Signage, page 3.39. New ground signs are not appropriate. However, if they are the infeasible option, then the height may not exceed 5 feet measured at grade. The maximum allowable area is 10 square feet.
Thank you, Morgan. All right,
Right.
go ahead.
Oh my, for the record, so I'm hoping this is our last application. Maybe not the last meeting, but the last application. Okay, so this is Andrew Lundberg. I'll speak first and then I'll hand it over to him to give a little bit of detail. He's an industrial artist. He's done a lot of stuff around town, if you're familiar with the Slingshot in Franklinton. A handful of other things. One of the things that's interesting about this application is we wanted to do an art piece here in this location. And that was the origination of what we were doing. And then we realized that because of the nature of the building being set back and off High Street, and it is our leasing office, that there's probably some necessity to have a sign component to that sculpture. So we're viewing this in 2 different ways. We're viewing it as a sculpture that has a 25 square foot sign on it. And I think the city could be viewing it in both ways as well, like more as a sign. So I think that's something that we probably need to discuss a little bit. But like I mentioned, the sign component itself is 25 square feet, so it's relatively small. The sculpture could exist without the sign. I mean, we would not love that, but it could. And really the sculpture, I'll let Andrew talk briefly about this, but the sculpture is really incorporating some of the elements that we're using on the interior of the project. And again, it is evoking the greenhouse brand and the greenhouse name of the building. So I'll hand it over to Andrew to just give a little bit of information on the sign itself, and then we can answer any questions.
Okay, so one of the pieces that they wanted to incorporate was Corten steel. So you can see that the plates behind the letters are Corten, and then the horizontal and vertical bracing in the back that hold the letters, those are both Corten too. The other thing that's Corten is are the poles, the stems we call them. I'd like to forge those. So we'll take an inch and a half solid steel. We'll hit them through, pound them through a hammer. So we give them a little deckled kind of, just so they're not straight pipe. It should look really nice. And then the the leaves themselves are two-sided, so we'll plasma cut both sides of the leaf, put them together with a pipe in between. So, and that'll all be, two-part paint. Everything will be cleared. And then the bottom decking portion, we're gonna use a composite decking, whether we're gonna do the teak look or the, what did I say? I think it was teak or IP. One of those two, the look for the final. And then, I guess the only other thing is we were gonna try to put some sort of uplighting in it, keep it small. There was already some pre-approved lighting from before that we used. And then we're talking about doing just a very, very slick, smooth, grass that comes up. Not, it's a fake grass. They make a lot of them, obviously, they look pretty nice and real these days. So not to have somebody have to trim that with a pair of scissors every 3 weeks, but something real clean and powdered.
Very helpful. Anything else before we take comments?
No.
All right, Steve.
We're already challenged with our decision to allow for full laminate.
Before, that's when I said.
Table, we're fine with it, but what we didn't want to do is have the base, you know, be something like funky looking. So there's other things we can do if that's off the table. We think that would look nice, but if that is like the deal breaker.
Again,
Don't
I
make
think,
it come
I think
out.
it's a unique application that it's about a material and a finish. It's not
Yeah.
about trying to emulate a lawn.
It really pays off the stems and the leaves more than it does. I mean, it's
Steve,
kind of-
I think this is a great idea, given that space. But I think is it art, is it
Yeah.
signage?
Right.
I think that base isn't a base, I think it's a fountain
Fun.
that the things sit in. And I think you have the ability to push water up, which then deadens the noise from the street and
Okay.
engages the area. It might cost you a little bit more money, but it would be very slick
It's cool.
in an outside space
Yeah.
like that.
We have a watermelon element on the Price Avenue side.
You
which is
know,
interesting.
so I think if you start getting into a fountain with a sign in it, you're starting to break things down, and that's my 2 cents, but I think it's a good idea. It's how we get around.
Yeah, I think the design is lovely, and the way you've approached it makes sense, but I agree. I don't know where I stand on the
Mhm.
interpretation of the rule.
You know, we're not backlighting the letters, and we're kind of trying to keep them part of the art.
Yep.
Putting them up next to Core 10. I totally understand the concern. I'd say that's probably 25% of the sign if you had to break it down into percentages.
Right, if you really,
You know,
And I mean, obviously I'm trying to sell you on this, but we did look at other elements that were like mostly sign and less art. And
Yeah.
that's where we knew it didn't fit in the context of the neighborhood. We knew we probably wouldn't get it approved. And that's where we landed on this. And that is why it's a pretty deliberate square footage number on the sign piece of it.
Is there, have you guys studied the placement of the sign component as it relates to the composition?
You mean like if
How
it's
did you
lower,
make it?
higher?
Yeah.
So yes, because there is a landscape bench that basically abuts the property before the right of way and before the sidewalk. So we want it to be above that so that when people are walking down the street, they are seeing that sign, but as they're looking for, you know, North Star, or as they're looking for a leasing office most likely.
Yeah.
So we did want that height to exceed that landscape bench.
So the base you wouldn't see. So the base
You're-
is
you're-
hidden behind that wall.
Yeah, the base you wouldn't see until you enter into the property more or less.
Understand. I think that's, when I look at it, I think the composition, I think that's what's challenging is just the location of the sign. And it could be more about the art and then the sign is secondary, you know what I mean, than just, you know, right now when the words are lifted, then it
Mhm.
becomes more sign-like.
Mhm.
So I was just trying to figure out how to make the art more primary in the discussion. That's,
Mhm.
you know,
yeah. Or do you separate the two?
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
greenhouse is the sign
Right.
and the leaves are the public artwork.
correct,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
I,
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Well, so it's not, where it says greenhouse, that area is within the limits, right, the 10 square feet.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah, it's when we're saying it's, yeah, because I mean, but the rest is sign, I think that's, yeah.
So are you suggesting that there's the sign component gets relocated? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying, well,
I'm just kind of saying they're two different things.
You're
There's
viewing it
a-
in two ways.
A leaf sculptural
Right.
component, and then there's a sign piece. And the sign piece isn't on the back of this thing, it's only on the front.
Mhm.
So here's your public art piece you're doing, which is this thing.
Right.
And then pole sits this T that says greenhouse,
Mhm.
and that's what we call the sign.
yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
That, I would be fine with that. But just really saying there's a public art piece to this, and then there's a signage.
Mhm.
Did you explore the width of that 24-inch width? I'm just wondering if we'll like a little bit more separation and,
No, I see what you're saying.
you know, depth to it with that.
The only difference is, so on that T, so the horizontal has, we're punching through, and that's where we're putting our pipes through it.
Yeah.
So it kind of has to be in relation to that, because of the plates are actually welded on to the T. We could stand those off a little further. We might even be able to find a way to separate them completely.
I think that would help with the argument if they were literally two separate
Oh.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all one piece that fits together nicely because of it being a T
And
and the welded, the cordon and all being welded together.
And it makes perfect sense, but I
Yeah,
think
it
that
does.
But it
leads it
could be
into
just
being
as
part
nice
of
as
the
that nice thin profile of the sign, with the
Yeah.
greenhouse.
Yeah,
And then
bring the
these
T
beautiful
out.
leaves coming up independently growing beneath the greenhouse.
Well, and it's interesting because you get a little more dimensionality as you're walking past it and stuff like that. I mean, I think you do here too, but I mean, I'm not opposed to that. And I think what we
Yeah,
would
we're-
want, I don't want to limit the discussion here, but I think we would just want the buy-in that both would get, well, the art I don't think needs approved, but that the sign would get approved. What I don't want to do is commit to this design without the sign, because I do think there is some integration there in terms of the overall aesthetic.
Yeah, understand. Yeah.
We could find a way to separate them. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if, just going to 30 inches
Yeah.
width, does that give you the
Yeah.
breathing room?
Mhm.
Sure.
I think that could be
Mhm.
explored. But yeah, in my mind, if you're able to make a literal separation
Yeah.
between the two, then
Mhm.
that's kind of the
That's the way to
justification.
go, because we can really justify
Yeah.
that.
Sure, as separate, yeah.
Sure. Anything else?
That's great.
Do you think you have what you need in order if we were to continue this accordingly, or?
I think I have what I need. Now, if we were able to revise it and essentially do what it looks like here aesthetically, but have the depth dimension, could that be a staff approval, or do you think you need it to come back to you?
I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I think it would probably, the staff would kick it back to us. I'm just kind of thinking because, so I think staff's recommendation is, staff's recommendation is the sign, it's a sign.
Right.
And I think what we're trying to do is talk through leaning on the art aspect of it and trying to separate the two, so that way we're evaluating it more appropriately. So it's probably gonna have to come back.
Or a subcommittee.
I'm gonna look at staff for that one. Just,
We would probably recommend continuing this time just to provide those updated drawings for the commission and all commission to see. We could not move it to staff or staff approve it because it doesn't follow the codes or guidelines.
Got it.
It could possibly be moved to staff approval at
This
the
is-
next.
The next business meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
business meeting,
Yeah.
there is forum, there's always that option, but that would be our recommendation.
Okay.
I'll just continue to next month, but of course, that's for commission.
no, that's helpful. I think it's a team. We gotta figure out the best way to get this.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we've been to enough
Is that
of these,
okay?
and we know there's a million ways to do it, so.
For sure.
One other question on this. Going that route, sounds good. Are you all comfortable with us, because the sculpture is like its own standalone piece then, are you all comfortable with us moving forward on production, that kind of thing, getting all the necessary approvals we would need otherwise? Because I don't think that would be up for approval, but I also am cautious to move on something that I don't want to come back and be like, well, the sign, what if you change the sculpture? Do you get what I'm saying?
Is it beneficial just to keep them together?
I think it probably is, because
It's probably
they're
is.
integral,
Mhm.
even though we're separating them.
You have to look at them together.
Yeah, I think-
Yeah,
I think
hear
it,
ya.
Because he has to work out the
That's what I'm
details of separation.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay,
He might be able to start the leak, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can get work on leaves, and start tomorrow.
Yeah.
What if we were able to really shrink it, it's just a thought, really shrink those letters down, let's say that they're half the size. Is that helping the equation, is the percentage?
No,
Nothing,
I
doesn't
think,
matter.
I think that the whole ticket is because I think the sign is within the guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Size
Yeah.
is.
I think it is.
It's just when you put it
Okay.
behind, and if you separate it, we have a public artwork.
Yeah.
And we have a sign, which meets the requirement of the signage, and we're adding a public artwork to the streetscape.
Mhm.
I think it's a win-win situation, and I think all of us feel that way.
I'm also like, Andrew and I work together now on a few different things, so I appreciate his ability to think creatively, but I'm also like, I don't want to put a sign out there that isn't gonna be effective. Because it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't help us, it doesn't help people walking by, it doesn't help neighboring businesses, it doesn't help the neighbors that are probably gonna get a knock on their door. So I am thoughtful about making it effective.
Yes.
and we could talk about taking it out and creating more leaves and make it all very sculptural without
Mhm.
the.
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah, but I like the direction we're headed. I think, no. Actually, most people come. Like, I'm with that.
Laser.
Yeah. I think we have a little dialogue, but I think we know, I feel like confident that we're gonna have the direction for the submission in the next few days.
Anything about the grass?
Well, couple things. Can you clarify did you say composite for the surrounding?
Yeah, like composite decking,
Composite deck?
yeah, and a teak look.
As opposed to a natural?
Well, right, I mean, you don't have as much, it's not gonna, I'm not gonna have to come out and, varnish it again.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
you can also let it weather.
Mhm.
You could, I've just had trouble with that in the past, I mean, we start using,
Okay.
the composite's perfect.
And we've had some, I mean, we're seeing it more and more, the composite material. The key for that is the detail, the right type of it. Because
Mhm.
Right.
it's where you have the ends, where you have those connections, that's gotta be, to
Yeah,
improve that materials, that's gotta be figured out.
Got it.
Yeah,
And visibility is another big one, right? I think
Yeah, this
we've
is-
approved it in the past, it's been second story decking.
Yeah.
The floorboards you would see, not
Yeah.
a sculpture on the streetscape
Mhm.
that's composite.
Mhm. Well, and remember, this is hidden behind a bench, so you do have to, I mean, I hear your point and I agree, because I will get in trouble if it looks bad at the end of the day, but you won't see it until you're on our property, so, but I hear ya, and we'll work.
well, the other thing is obviously the natural scraping and the sheen and all that, not to look cheap, certainly. I mean, that's
I mean,
part of
I
it.
keep forgetting it's not gonna be same, because if it was me, I would do it metal also, metal all the way around.
That's an
So
interesting
it
idea,
looks
yeah.
more sculptural, it looks
Yeah.
cleaner, you don't have this heavy thing sitting on
Yeah.
wood versus it sitting on a metal. I just
Not
got back.
necessarily, like,
It worked.
that
Let's see
would
natural,
Yeah.
like another natural component rather than all being steel.
Yeah.
I thought the wood felt good with the
Yeah.
metal.
We'll talk it through, I mean, I think there are some options there, I do not wanna do Core 10 down here, because we know it bleeds.
Right.
I would love to, but that is the one thing that we talked about already, but could there be a complementing material that we haven't thought
Will
about?
do what?
possibly? The Core 10 will like drip,
Stains.
you know, and stain the ground.
It's beautiful, but it's beautiful and small. you know.
Yeah, hence why it's contained here.
And that's why the letters are coming
Yeah.
off the plate. I mean, they're not gonna get that snaking onto the letters, you know.
Cool.
So back to the composite, I mean, it really is a planter, it's not a deck, so I
Mhm,
think
yeah.
there's some wiggle room there. I just, if that's the direction you're gonna go, make sure you figured out those.
Got it.
end
You got it.
Components. I'm not opposed to the artificial turf kind of edge. I'd be considerate of, where it's sitting relative to the top of the planter.
Yep.
Mhm.
Maybe explore, is there a decorative rock or something that,
Mhm.
could do, I don't know without seeing it. I mean, I'm not opposed to this, but wouldn't mind seeing a couple options.
Okay.
Okay.
If you guys were
Sure.
willing.
And I was just gonna say, in terms of the composite, so right now, in the application, at least on the drawing, on the plan, it says that it's Ipe teak tongue and groove, so it doesn't mention the composite on the.
Mhm.
on
No,
that.
that's correct.
So,
We
so
divided that.
if it is gonna be the composite, we gotta have a cut sheet.
Yeah,
For what it is.
and we can probably get it.
For the record, I prefer it not to be a composite, because of
Okay.
visibility, but that's my preference.
Okay.
Ipe is pretty good stuff, that would last just fine, so,
Okay,
just something worth considering.
sure.
Awesome. Anything else you guys have questions before we A motion to continue?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion to continue, I just lost it. BB 23 12 01330 Price Hammond.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're on for our last application. This is conceptual. This is VV 23-12-014, 851 Neal Avenue.
Thank you for sticking around, sir.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
What did you learn?
A lot, actually. I have my own opinions about this.
Could you state your name this morning, sir?
Dominic Bianconi.
Did you agree to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Proposed work description, replace existing retaining wall with 1 foot 11-inch brick retaining wall per submitted documentation. Plan to be graded behind the retaining wall. Staff analysis, applicant initially applied in early November. After initial review, HPO staff informed the applicant that we would not be in support of increasing the height of the retaining wall or the grade of the front yard, as the change would not be compatible with the adjacent properties. Additionally, we would not be in support of the mixed fence materials, with iron fencing being installed on top of the brick retaining wall based on Victorian Village Guidelines, page 28. Staff recommends setting the fence back behind the retaining wall, replacing the retaining wall with the height that is currently on the property. Staff recommended that the current submission be presented to the commission under conceptual review, and the applicant has since removed the iron fence from the design. It will just be the retaining wall. After the November business meeting, commissioners had the following requests and statements. They asked applicant to provide photographs of the homes either side of 851 Neal to show the front yard conditions. Commission clarified with the applicant that the height of the existing retaining wall is 10 inches. Please provide information about how the retaining wall returns around the side of the front yard, how far back the wall will return. Commission noted that the transition between the yards will be very important. Please provide pictures of and heights of other retaining walls on the same side of the street and information about the materials of those. Brick is not a material that has been approved by the commission for retaining wall for a long time, but there are many examples of this condition. Please provide pictures of and locations of similar retaining walls in the neighborhood. Applicant responded with the following. They've supplied photographs of the homes adjacent to the property, as well as pictures of other retaining walls along Neal Avenue, including 10 examples of existing brick retaining walls. They have confirmed that the height of the existing retaining wall is 10 inches in height. The wall returns would be a maximum of 58 inches that is visible on the site plan. Staff note, as it can be seen on Google Street View, it does not appear that there are retaining walls at the neighboring properties directly north and south. There are 2 retaining walls within the block, 839 and 861 Neal Avenue. We're unable to locate when 839 Neal Avenue was installed. We have evidence of the fence being present in 1989. Sorry, the wall being present in 19. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Present in 1987 photograph. 861 Neal Avenue with flagstone retaining wall was approved in 1993, COA 93-5A 13 at 15 inches in height. Staff recommendation is for the commissioners to offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. No action is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Turn it over to you, sir.
I don't have much to add.
Okay. All right, no worries. Thoughts, team?
My only comment is we have done one of these recently in 228 Second Avenue was the 2 new builds. That retaining wall was approved by us.
Just a clarification on that one.
Okay,
It was considered not compliant.
was it really?
It was done without coming to us first.
Good to know.
And I remember, and we revised it. We took a couple courses down, and then we ended up capping it.
Okay,
And that is the new build. It's right on Second.
yes,
It's kind of a greenish color.
yes,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
No worries. No
Good
worries.
memory.
And that's when I saw this one at the business meeting, it kind of jogged the memory of, I remember something, and it was
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir. And I think we had a very similar conversation about it in terms of materiality. Brick, is brick appropriate? Has, some of those very similar conversations that have come up as of recently. So not to say no, I just was just kind of
Yep.
giving a little bit of history on that.
So, there's, I think, maybe two things at play. One, wanting to increase the height, but then two being the material. And so, the easy solution is you have stone currently, you have to maintain stone, and then a question of, can we raise the height or not? Versus, totally foreign element relative to this property. And so that's where most of the cases that we're seeing that, yes, there has been brick used over time, not a new installation in most cases that we're using. But if it were an existing brick wall and we were replacing it in kind, I think it's a different conversation.
Yeah, I think the intention with brick was just to have it like match the house. That was our logic.
And I think, in my mind, the fact that it's stone currently, that material replaced in kind is more appropriate. When you also look at the house, there is that stone base to it, and so that material is talking to each other still.
So would the preference be for the material to more closely match the foundation of the home? Or to match what is currently, it's just like stacked rocks. It's not necessarily a efficient wall right now.
Right.
Just in terms of the materials.
Yeah, it's hard to see exactly what the foundation's doing. Yeah, the foundation has, there is something to that proportion of being longer than tall, but also having a little bit of a rough finish to it.
Part of it's a function of how tall it's going to be. Right?
Yeah,
But you
yes,
have to have that
it is.
discussion along with what that.
Yep.
Because if it's going to stay at that height, it wouldn't make sense to use blocks.
Yeah.
Right, for one course.
I will note, for commissioners, if I may, we could not locate a COA for that current retaining wall. It looks like there might have been, landscaping timbers that were there before, they were replaced at some point. It was back maybe like 2011 or 9, I think, from what we could see through Google Street View, but we did not have a firm confirmation that there was a COA for that, stone material that's been installed, just for that material discussion.
Very helpful.
Well, and what's there is really kind of more of a curve than it is a
Yeah.
wall.
Not a retaining wall. It's,
Yeah.
it's,
Sure.
when you walk by, it's about this up and down.
So,
Is it exploring the material?
If you want to take this, if you take this in pieces.
Right, I think okay, let's take it in pieces. Let's take it, materiality. Let's go materiality, right? Materiality first.
I don't agree with the brick.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just, I see all the examples, I recognize those, and every time I walk by those, I say these are out of place. Right, so it's just, that would be my.
I agree.
And at least that's consistent to what the conversations were on the most recent. So that's fair. So materiality is more so a natural stone. And then the proportions of a stone has to relate to height, right?
Yes.
So now we're talking about height. Right.
So I'll say what I say at every time we do these. These keep creeping up higher and higher and higher, right? They no one comes in and says, I want to lower my retaining. So I guess I would ask the applicant here, what's driving to increase the height?
Yeah, excuse me. We mostly are looking to make more usability and ease of maintaining the front yard, the landscaping. The slope that it currently is, you can't really use any of the land to like sit on or sit out on or use anyway. It's kind of difficult to mow and even maintain. So our main driving idea was that we'd like to sort of more level the front yard so that we can improve and maintain the landscaping and make the front yard a little bit more usable. Right now with the slope, we kind of don't have a front yard, which we knew when we purchased the home, but just trying to make improvements. So that is where the height comes from, is sort of just gauging where the yard currently levels off to what we would need to maintain that. If that makes, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yes.
So just get level with the grade. basically
Exactly.
on the house.
Of where it currently is, yeah. We're definitely not trying to like increase the yard or anything like that.
I can almost hear Kimberly yelling in my ear though, right? Because like, I know she's not a fan of retaining walls, and it's the sloping thing, right? I mean, that was the design. The yards is we're supposed to be like that, right? It's not like it just got built up over time. That was the look, and that's what the neighbors have in this particular example, right? So, and then everyone does the retaining walls for the exact reason you said, and you start to lose some of that character. If it's a retaining wall, that means then it becomes a fence on top of the retaining wall, and then it's a compound on the other side, the wall. So I don't want to exaggerate, but where we can keep the height down and not keep adding to it, that would be my preference.
Understand. That's fair. I think I would be okay with, I would agree with that. I think I would be okay if it was a product of the material that was being used. So say, for instance, if the appropriate stone was selected, and that appropriate stone, in order to get close to 10 inches, 12 inches, that you needed 3 courses, and we increased a little bit because of the factor of the material, then I think that I would be 100% on board.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So allowing the material to somewhat drive a little bit of the right height to be able to get the best look out of the material that's selected.
So basically, what you're saying is you want, if he's leveling out the lawn, the main sidewalk, it's the third step that would make the level. So that, whatever that height is what would make the lawn flush and usable all the way up to the edge. So what is that?
It is that.
They're not changing the sidewalk. They're not changing the steps. It would be whatever that height is.
Like that's nearly 2 feet.
That's, I think that's.
Yeah, it's 2 feet.
And I guess what I'm saying is that it's not just 2 feet arbitrarily. You know what I mean? It's like, is it 12 inches? Is it a little bit taller than the 10 foot? I don't know if we're necessarily going to be able to get to a point where the lawn is 100% flat. I mean, you know what I mean? So,
I'm fine. Yeah, sorry.
because I think there's 2 factors. One is a desire to be able to flatten the lawn for usability. But the other one is being able to help with erosion and keeping the yard manicured and such, just based on it. So I'm thinking that is really important. And if that increases as a factor of the product that's been installed, if it's the right selection, then there could be an ability of increasing it from the current 10 inches, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The only caveat, I agree with you completely. Right now, that wall is level with that first step.
Yeah.
And if you change it, you either have to go to the next step or just keep it exact.
The transitions are critical.
Right.
Completely agree with you.
There's no in between there, I don't.
Completely.
I completely agree that those steps are driving what the elevation of any kind of containment along the sidewalk wants to be. And that's why this works right now, is that those are aligned with the first riser.
And that's really where the height came from.
Yeah.
Is that top step.
Yep.
Now, if you kind of did find that compromise and went to the middle step, is that gonna look, you're gonna need to return to the wall.
You have to return where we're seeing.
And you're still gonna have this, something's gonna be off, it's gonna be a weird little up there.
So the third step is too tall, is that what you guys are saying?
I
With a cap, so with a cap, level with the third step, the wall's too tall.
I think so.
Yeah, 2 feet.
Hmm?
I think that's at 2 feet, yeah.
So if we find, okay, just wait.
No, yeah.
We'll get through it.
No worries. Or will we say, I guess,
Generally speaking, a 2-foot wall, no, is not
It's not
too
right.
tall, but I think it's about the appropriateness on this property. That goes to our age-old question of what was the original intent and what's happening kind of in the area.
Yeah, there would have been nothing here originally, right? So.
go ahead, Jeff. You're holding back.
I just think that, so this house down the street, how tall is that wall? That goes up to their third step.
I did note the height of each wall.
Huh?
All the pictures, I did note the height of each one. I'm not sure if I took a picture of
This
that.
one, with
I can't see that.
5 inches.
all the fancy ribbons.
If you
That's
scroll through the
17 inches. I think, yes,
What address is that?
861, you know.
861 Neil, we could.
No, it says right here, 17 inches.
And that's, I think that's the closest to the subject property. as
Because
well.
that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
The question is how tall is his third step? Because I think something like that would work well.
No, I think that, I completely agree. I completely agree.
If I may know, for 861 Neil Avenue, it was originally approved, I just read it, I apologize. Was originally approved in, where did that go? 93, it was supposed to be at 15 inches in height. Was that approval? I'm not sure, of course, if it changed over time, but from that record of that COA for 861 Neil.
Because I mean, it's interesting. So like you see 1135 is 24 inches, but then you see 1065 Neil Avenue is 24 inches. And this one's 23 inches. Maybe it's how these are photographed, but I mean, some of these look bigger. But I think that 17-inch with the right proportion works if it works with your steps.
For sure.
Which
Agreed. And that's why I was saying that, I'm willing to, it's a kind of a factor of material too. Obviously, the site conditions, the steps, the material that's being selected, and not necessarily just the arbitrary 24. Now, it might have been 24, might have been appropriate from the standpoint of the brick, right? Because you're on course, it's coursing. There's certain things related to brick that might have made the 24 inches alongside of the step condition too as well. You know what I mean? So, I'm gonna offer applicant any thoughts of what's being discussed. How do you see, if we were to stop right now, how would you move forward?
Well, my next question, my follow-up question is a little bit more about the materials that you would prefer in contrast to the brick. The only driving force of the brick was to match the home. But if the facade of the home anyway, but if we're trying to match something else, I'd love to hear what that might be, so that we can explore different materials to match whatever your feedback is. My thought is like, let's say we want to use some kind of natural stone, and then we go and you say, hey, we want to maintain the current height of the wall as close as we can. So then that stone, as you were saying about the courses, we're like, well, the only way we can do that with that material would lead us to like between steps 1 and 2. And then would come back and say, well, we don't like that. Can we add another one so we end up, at the top of step 2? Or is it going to end up halfway between 2 and 3? Like, I understand where that's going.
For sure.
So I guess my question is sort of like what we want to do, if I'm understanding, is find a material. So I need some feedback on that.
Yes, sir.
And then that material say, we want to be as close to maintaining the current height of the wall while making the balance with the steps correct. Is that right?
I think that was an excellent explanation.
And I think 10, and Tim, you can chime in on this, but I think 1027 Neil Avenue, 17-inch wall would be a good example for you, material wise.
Yeah.
And what it would look like.
The home that's just, sorry, which one is?
1027 Neil Avenue.
Did I take a picture?
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay.
Sounds recent.
Yeah, it's the texture to that.
The texture and meeting that step, you see it, that actually it meets the step, depending on where yours are, but I mean.
Because you're gonna have to do a tie-in that's pretty similar to that, because there's no retaining wall on either side, right?
Mhm.
So I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in fact, I think I labeled this one in the top pictures.
And if you're, you talked about incorporating the brick facade, you can incorporate this stone in other parts of your landscape, so you bring the two things together.
Certainly.
not just within the wall.
Yeah, I mean, like, we weren't like 100% on brick, we just thought.
But I think that's probably your best, I think that's your best.
This complements the foundation. That's kind of what you're trying to match, is the foundation of the house.
Yeah,
I
if
think you've got, the steps limestone or sandstone?
They are just concrete.
They're concrete, okay, it's hard to tell from the picture. So,
Yeah, you're in a difficult strip of kind of like misfit toys of different kinds of retaining walls around you. I mean,
Yeah.
Not misfit houses.
no, not misfit retaining walls where it's like you have none, you have some that are concrete, you have some that are, it's just,
It's almost to the point where in an ideal world, if we were building in a simulation, you know, that all have retaining walls, where
Yeah.
they all wouldn't. You know?
Yeah.
exactly.
you have
So-
some have baluster, it's just, yeah, it's.
So we have these Neil Avenue commissioner snobs. Just, I've about had enough of them, quite frankly.
I hate being the bad guy with all the retaining walls. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
So I would say, to your point about the height, I think we gave you good material. I agree with the 1065. I hope we get the anniversary, 1065, Neil, but try to keep it low and then come back to us and see what it looks like. Again, you've heard our comments about the stairs and the returns and how this is all going to look together. We'll come up on height if we need to, but let's not start at 24 inches and then go there, right?
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I will just only say, I know that you pulled the iron, the fence off, the decorative fence. I think there was a decorative fence that was part of the discussion early on and it was removed. I'm just saying that, in the process of evaluating that, I mean, if you feel that it's appropriate to bring that back into the equation, I think we would be open to that. I don't think there's no concerns.
We just didn't have the material that was requested in time for this meeting. So we were like, well, let's at least proceed with the wall and we can come back with evidence when we have the
Okay.
right documentation.
Just for your benefit, I think it would be beneficial to have them both in terms of being able to talk this through.
Yeah.
I think it would benefit you from a constructability standpoint and kind of thinking it through. So it would be helpful to bring it back.
Okay.
I think some of those existing conditions that we've talked about, like in 1027, they've all, kind of stepped the wall or stepped the fence back, a little bit from the wall.
It is not the preference.
Separate foundation, things of that nature. To allow for some plantings they have.
It's not an additive process. I build my wall and then I put it just a typical.
No, we were just trying to
Yeah.
make progress where progress can be made. Right?
Makes sense, for sure.
But we'd rather see it as a package if you can do it as a package. Sure.
Yeah, we have the documentation now, so
Okay.
we can definitely do that when we come back.
Perfect.
Awesome. I guess if I can ask, so in regards to a fence, is the preference to be removed from?
Yes.
Yes.
So that for just,
It's gonna serve you better long term. I think it's gonna give you a little bit more flexibility. If something happens to the wall, you can repair the wall without messing with the fence. Sometimes with the fence is actually down through, you start to get a situation when things fall, concrete spalling, and
yeah,
it's just a lot of things that are a little bit more challenging. And if there is ability to step that back appropriately, then it helps.
It also helps just scale the public way there, that when that gets stepped back, it kind of helps diminish the imposing nature that can't happen sometimes with the
So-
two.
to a degree, I forget the address that home is. Is that like an appropriate distance?
1027, Neil, I think is a good example.
Yeah, there's, I think, a few examples on that block where it's set back.
Yeah. Where you can do some plantings in between.
Yeah, that's really what I was trying to ask is,
Yeah.
are we trying to leave space for plantings or just not on top of the wall?
I think the plantings are always a nice touch.
Yeah.
And this one was responding a little bit to the neighbor that is planted just a little north of that was already installed.
Well, and I appreciate
so-
that it kind of lines up with
Yeah,
that.
and that was kind of part of the conversation too as well. And, just trying to find that balance, because every condition is a little unique. So I think that's why it's very helpful, is that may prompt something on the wall from that perspective that you need to, kind of work through as it relates to how the fence is going to engage the gates. And, there's all kinds of little nuances related to that. So that's why we were just asking.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Okay. We don't have anything else, so we don't have to, no motion, and we look forward to next
Happy
month.
holidays.
Sounds good. Yeah, likewise.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
waiting.
Thank you.
The only note that I would have is, since it is a conceptual application, you will receive an additional week from the deadline to submit for next month. The deadline is tomorrow at 4 p.m., so you'll read additional to be reviewed. If you need more time, of course, you can go, or I can send the deadline for next month's application.
Yeah, we would not be prepared until, we would like to be prepared for the February.
Okay, then we can send that.
Whatever
in, not
this
just-
meeting is in February.
Just to let you know.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.